This is episode number 368 of the InnerFight podcast, the health and fitness show. I've got with me the founders of Bikingman and world record holders. This is Andreas and Axel. Let's get into it. Axel and Andreas, welcome to the InnerFight podcast. You are the founders of Bikingman. Before we dig into that, who's going to kick it off? Really, who are you? Where do you come from? And what's going on? Axel, give us a bit of your background. Sorry, he's French.
Bonjour, je vais parler uniquement en français.
Yeah, the whole thing in French.
Yeah, tout en français. No, I do speak English. Thank you very much, Marcus, for the invitation and giving us the opportunity of talking about Bikingman. So I'm Axel, I'm 32 years old. I'm the co-founder of Bikingman. I started cycling almost 10 years ago now.
Right.
And I started cycling as a touring adventure opportunity.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you a lot during this because I think things are really interesting. And what interests me the most about when we're talking to people is, how did you start cycling 10 years ago? You're 22 years old. Everyone has a bike when they're young. What happened that made you start cycling at the age of 22?
Well, we are in 2010 exactly,
right?
To be sharp on dates. And basically, I was working out a lot at a gym.
Yeah.
Working out around 15 hours a week, and eventually I got this job, which was taking me most of my time. Early start, late arrival at home.
Yeah.
And well, eventually I couldn't work out anymore. And what happened is that I had a couple of friends that were traveling, doing some very hard things on touring bikes.
Right.
Riding hard for 10 days in the wilderness and carrying all the stuff you need to actually survive this kind of riding.
Mm-hmm.
And they gave me the opportunity of joining this.
Wow.
I was not a cyclist in the first place, and I'd say, well, why not?
Yeah.
So I jumped into the adventure, and I became completely hooked, and it became addictive. So we repeated this from 2010 to 2015.
Right.
And this touring thing, which was at the beginning, cycling roughly 120k per day with a 40 kilos bike while you're carrying your kitchen, your sleeping bag.
I was going to say, mate, what exactly do you carry for 40 kilos? I try not to go anywhere with more than 9 kilos.
Well, pretty much everything you need to ride in Ukraine, Moldavia, and Albania, and to camp in the wilderness, cook, water, and equipment.
Yeah.
So basically,
so
we
it
had
adds up very quickly then.
Yeah. Plus, the inexperience is actually coming fast, which means when you don't have any experience, you bring lots of weight.
Yeah.
That makes the ride more challenging. And but going in the wilderness, cycling all day, and just being focused on the riding experience and adventure became a way of living apart from the job.
Amazing.
So I kept repeating this experience.
Yeah.
And eventually one day I just tried to build a big thing. Like apart from these 10 days, 12 days, up to 15 days cycling tours, which were not cycling tours because we were murdering ourselves for 15 days just to get out of the job and get the experience. Just prepared with my wife and a friend a dream, which was doing a long distance cycling experience, and crossing the dream of my wife, which was to go in South America.
Hold that thought. Let's jump in with your partner. I feel a bit sorry for Andreas. He's sat here listening to this romantic story, and
I've heard it before. It's fine.
It's become even more romantic now. Your wife's involved in all this stuff. Andreas, introduce yourself. Give us a little bit of background, and let's see what's going on there.
Thanks for that. My name is Andreas Fabricius. I'm 34 years old. I'm Swedish. And my background is I used to play a lot of soccer. I dropped out when I was about 20.
Right.
And then I continued basically running was my thing.
Right.
I got a bike from a friend when I was 22. He gave it to me before he left, study abroad.
Yeah.
It was a mountain bike. I rode it once from Halmstad to Gothenburg. It's about 150k.
Okay.
And then I got stolen. So that was it.
Good story.
And then I didn't ride until 2010, I think it was, when I moved to Copenhagen.
Right.
And I bought myself a steel bike, and I figured, I want to do a triathlon. So I signed up for one, and then I did it. And
what distance did you start with?
I did a half Ironman in May, and then I did the full in July.
So you just started out the blocks, I'll just do half Ironman.
Yeah.
Very good.
Why not?
As you do, yeah.
Well, I didn't know how to swim. I couldn't ride a bike. It was completely useless, but I could run at least.
Run.
Yeah. And then I sort of got hooked, and in 2012 I moved down to France. You know, the riding in France is just amazing.
Yeah.
So I got myself a new bike and started riding more.
Yeah.
And then I met this guy last year in 2016 maybe.
2016.
In January or February. Yeah.
Shall we flip back to the love story? Because if I get my dates right, the love story with your wife, which is a natural love story before this love story.
She's not here, it's fine.
This is like a podcast of different love stories. I think the story of what you did with your wife that sort of led into, and that was before you met Andreas. I think this is a great story that people would like to hear as well. Because why do I think people would like to hear it? Because a lot of the time I see a lot of people perhaps not aligned with their loved one, or she's doing one thing, he's doing another thing. So this is something super cool. I know you sort of sold the idea to her, so it was a little bit of a con, but let's jump into that part, mate.
Yeah, so we were in 2014. Basically, I was bored with job. I was working hard for 8 years for the same company.
Yeah.
And, we built this bike expedition in South America, where basically we had the idea of crossing the whole continent, starting from Cartagena in Colombia up to Argentina, Ushuaia. So how we started the idea with my wife was, she wanted to go there. I wanted to just quit the job and do this big thing. Yeah. We took a map and we said, all right, let's start here and go there. And then
was she into cycling? Like you're off on these crazy adventures with 40 kilos on your bike.
Yeah.
Is she into it by this time, or
not at all? I mean, she's
thinking idiot.
She has a sportive background. Is basically jazz dancing for like almost 12 years.
Right.
And but no endurance.
Well, cycling is the same. If you dance good enough on the pedals for long enough, the bike kind of goes full.
No, she actually didn't have any sportive background into cycling. And I saw the thing saying, it's not going to be that rough.
Yeah.
Even though I started building the route of that crazy journey.
Feel free to chip in. Like you're sitting here.
Well, let's just say she's not cycling anymore.
Well, let's talk numbers. I mean, the South American trip we've done together was 13,500 kilometers.
Right.
154,000 meters climbing, total elevation.
Wow.
In 8 months. So we rode 6 days a week. She rode an hour and a half more every day to catch up with the two guys, because I was cycling with a friend at the time as well.
Right.
And basically it was riding for her almost 7 hours a day, 6 days a week, to make it from Cartagena to Ushuaia, following the Andes. Because we went off the beaten tracks. We didn't follow the Pan American Highway and the easy roads. We actually went at 5,000 meters in Bolivia, enduring minus 20 temperatures, sleeping in the Uyuni salas and, these super remote areas where you have to store your food for 2 weeks. Anyway, she went through the thing, she endured, and she cycled every bit of it.
Wow.
Yeah, every kilometer was cycled.
I have to ask, mate, how many times did you argue?
Actually, not that many.
That's not what she said.
That's the beauty of it. I mean, it's before this adventure, before letting everything behind us.
Yeah.
The job, family. I mean, saying to her family, I'm going to Colombia and I'm riding in the Andes at 5,000 meters. Most people are saying you're insane.
Yeah.
And so we left everything behind. But before that, we were not thinking about working together.
Right.
We were like, if we work together one day, we'll murder
each
other.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And what the beauty of this trip, apart from the fact that she's not cycling anymore, is that we learned actually to endure together and go beyond any harshness, any problems you have to overcome in this kind of journey.
Yeah.
So it's like, we have a TV show in France, it's Île de la Tentation.
Right.
It's Tempting Island, where people are, couples are sent to an island, and you get these gentlemen and women. Their mission is actually to seduce one of the couple.
Right.
And I'm always saying that was our Île de la Tentation, because most people will actually either quit their partner, or just murder him or murder her during this kind of trip, because you have no comfort at all. You have nothing. You're always with him, or always with her.
Were you camping every night, or you're finding hostels? What was the game plan going into it?
Well, we were arranging it all along the way, meaning we didn't have any schedule saying today we'll sleep here and we'll find a nice fancy hotel. It was the reverse. We were today we're late on planning because we had this past horrible road conditions, so we were mostly camping and sleeping at fireman stations 20 times over the 185 days we spent cycling, but mostly in the wilderness.
Incredible.
So cooking your own stuff. Sometimes storing, 10 liters of water to make sure that you can actually cook tonight and prepare some coffee and tea in the morning. Otherwise, all the team gets cranky.
That's an incredible journey, especially. I think folks that are listening, if you do have a minute, just pull up a map of what's going on here. This is the length of South America. This is one man and his wife. This is 185 days on a bike, which is something incredible. We'll move on from that and let Andreas feel more part of our show here.
Oh, it's fine. I'm enjoying this.
You got back from that, and soon after, you guys were somehow introduced. Andreas, talk us through what happened there.
Well, it was actually one of my colleagues who told me that he'd gone for a group ride, a weekend, and he met a guy who was equally stupid as you, he said.
Right.
And he said, you guys should meet.
Right.
And I said, well, why not? So we hooked up for a group ride on a Saturday or a Sunday.
Yeah.
And we sort of took off and got along well, and it turned out that we were actually living about 300 meters apart.
No way.
Yeah, so it was very convenient after that to just, you want to ride tomorrow at 4:30? Yes. Boom. Let's go.
Okay.
So we started training together.
Yeah.
And then it sort of just took off from there. We'd started pushing things. Instead of riding 6 hours, we'd say, well, maybe we can ride 9 hours. And then we did that. And then maybe we can ride 12 hours. And then we did that. And then
what was it for you, though, mate? Why would you start at 3 hours, and that's good. Why did you want to ride more?
Well, why not?
Right.
I mean, you want to push your own limits, right? You want to see how far can you actually go.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. And then we, it just escalated, and somehow someone thought of the idea of let's ride down to Barcelona.
Right.
And then
from Nice down to Barcelona. How far is that?
It's about 820k.
Okay. So it's quite short.
So we figured why not? Let's see how long it takes. And it took about 2.5 days, I think.
Yeah.
And we were completely demolished afterwards.
Really?
Yeah. We left at 3 a.m. on a Thursday. We rode about 400-ish the first day.
Right.
Took into a hotel. We rode maybe 240 the second day, and then 130 the third in the morning.
But you told us about triathlon. You didn't like swimming, and you weren't very good at riding a bike. The only part of triathlon you're interested in was running.
Yep.
So how did being on a bike get, I won't call it comfortable because it's probably still not comfortable now, but how did you move in? What about the bike got attractive to you?
Well, you can cover much more distance.
Right.
And especially in the south of France, the riding is, amazing.
Yeah.
And you can ride from sea level up to 2,000 meters.
Right.
And with running, you can go, I like trail running as well. It's very addictive, but, 3-4 hours of doing that, you won't cover the distance, and you'll be destroyed in a different way.
Yeah, for sure.
So cycling is, I would say cycling is easier than running. So you can do more of it.
Right. So you land up in Barcelona after 2.5 days?
We did, yeah. We drove we rode straight to my friend's house. And they prepare a barbecue for us.
That's very kind of
Yeah,
good friends.
some beers, relaxing, and then we packed our stuff up, went to the airport, and flew back home.
As you do.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I guess that once you've done a trip like that, I mean, it's 1,000 kilometers. It's no joke. Then, from what I'm getting here, it kicks in. What becomes next?
Yeah. Well, first we didn't want to ride for a long time. It was just mentally you were fatigued.
Right.
But then Axel wrote. He read this book about a crossing, and we started sort of chatting and discussing things, and then this idea popped up about South America. Why don't we, try and hammer the whole continent and see what happens?
Right.
And eventually, I think in September, we decided that let's do it.
So the idea came from a book. I mean, you'd already been there though, mate. So talk us through how this sort of, you chose South America, but then you read a book, and so why did you want to go back there and do almost the same thing? I know it's different, but how did it all come together?
Well, it's very simple. When I worked out the South American trip with my wife, I investigated a lot,
Right.
and I searched for inspiration as well.
Yeah.
To check if you're not insane. And basically, what happens is that when you start, investigating this kind of stuff,
Yes.
well, you find books of explorers, of adventurers,
Yeah.
and I read quite a lot.
Yeah.
And I always felt like the South American trip we've done with my wife was not fast enough. So we are a team of
I
three.
hope she doesn't listen to this.
No, she won't.
Good.
I'll
Carry
tell
on.
her, it's.
I'll send her the link. Don't
Yeah.
worry.
We
course you
were
will.
a team of three, so Laetitia, Stefan, a friend, and me. And
Yeah.
basically, I kept pushing all the time the team to, overcome the day.
Right.
And I felt like always I could go further.
Right.
And
right.
we discussed with this crazy guy here, Andreas, and it was during a coffee ride we were doing very often, and why not crossing South America on a turbo mode? And the Barcelona ride was actually the beginning of our understanding that it was not that crazy. It was actually easy if you train properly, if you get the
Yes.
right volume, and if you're adventurous enough to take on the challenge.
Yeah.
So we had this guy, a Scottish guy, Scott Napier,
Right.
who had done the journey in 58 days, and we were like, wow, why not, trying to do something better? And for 7 years since his world record, no one attempted to do it.
Right.
And
From the same points that you guys did?
yeah, from Cartagena, Colombia to
Yeah.
Ushuaia, Argentina.
Right.
And I knew why, because I had the experience
Yeah.
of the continent.
Yeah.
The idea was, pushing forward our experience with Andreas to ultra cycling and bike packing adventures, and taking the advantage of my knowledge of the continent,
Yeah.
plus sharing with this guy the South American riding experience, which is
yeah.
absolutely wild.
Yeah.
It's incredible. You got landscapes and mountains that are twice higher than any mountains in the world apart from Nepal.
Right.
So you got peaks that are unbeatable.
Yeah.
And you get this high altitude experience, this wilderness where it feels like it's almost the first... You almost feel like it's the first time a cyclist is actually cycling here.
Right.
And it's an amazing experience.
Right.
Plus, at that time, when we were planning the world record with Andreas, I already had planned with my wife a first race of the Bikingman series,
Right.
which was Inca Divide. Basically taking the cyclists around the world in July to cycle the whole mountain range, the whole Andes between Ecuador and Peru,
Right.
which was the most stunning part of our journey.
Right.
So that race was being organized, and the idea was to echo this with the world record with Andreas, and then work on the race series
Yeah.
of Bikingman.
So when you start to talk about it, how did you feel, mate? Like, obviously you'd learnt a lot from Axel about his experience, and you've got this sense of adventure as well. what starts to happen mentally and maybe a little bit emotionally?
I think the first thing was was that I knew that he had been riding for 6 hours a day, 6 days a week, and we were pretty equal when it comes to riding, at least. And our idea was, well, we'll have to ride at least 10 hours a day, and I knew that he could do that, so I figured, well, he can do it, I can do it.
Right.
And 10 hours is just a few more hours every day. So plus, I've never been to South America, so why not?
Really?
Yeah.
So that were you somehow nervous though, mate?
Yeah, yes and no, I'd say. I mean, obviously that Axel's been there before was comforting. I knew that he'd gone through it, so we had gone through some real training together. So I knew how he reacted in certain situations, and I knew how I reacted. So I figured we're pretty similar, so it should be all right.
Should be okay.
Yeah.
Talk us through a little bit of that training. So when you've now decided that you're going to go for a world record. You're going to try and get from the north of South America to the bottom of South America in the record's 58 days, you said?
Yeah.
And your goal was to do it 50. Your initial goal, was it?
I think we said 50 plus, less than 58.
Right.
Yeah.
So day one of training for something like that, what did that look like?
Well, we had been riding quite a lot ever since we met in, I think it was January or February.
Right.
So basically we figured that we continue the volume, ride a lot of mountains where we live.
What does volume mean?
Well, between 10 to, well, I'd say 12 to 20 hours a week maybe.
Okay.
Depending on...
so not a huge amount. I mean, if you look at people that are involved in triathlons and stuff, they would generally train 12 to 15 hours.
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
or more. Some of the guys that are doing it wrong.
Key is consistency.
Yeah.
And we had consistency, and we knew that. We felt that we could do it. We just had to keep doing what we were doing, basically.
How far from saying, right, we're going to do this, to when you started? What was the time that you actually had to train?
I think we sort of decided sometime in September, let's do this.
Right.
So we had a few months.
When were you supposed to start?
January 1st.
Wow. So you had 4 months.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Which is not really a very long time, right?
But we already had...
but you had a lot of...
Yeah. Oh, in 2016, we piled around 600 hours of training between running, cycling and swimming.
Right.
Because we were doing the three.
Right.
So already had, some nice riding mileage.
Yeah.
And I think we rode maybe around 13,000 kilometers this year.
Right.
So we had the volume, we had the consistency, and we had... I think the most important was, to get this threshold and try to beat this kind of threshold. But these mental limits where you're actually saying, well, most cyclists, I'm very surprised to see that most cyclists haven't ridden their bikes over a 200 kilometers route.
In one hit.
And, we actually were more focused on overcoming these kind of limits, which are mostly mental.
Yeah.
To be sure that we could handle whatever the situation would be in South America.
Yeah.
So, poor fueling.
Yeah.
We're trying, to go low on fueling, go low on water as well, to actually,
simulate the situation.
Simulate the situation we could have in South America.
Yeah.
So, basically, training, like cycling, in a way, was just a part of training. Then all the other part of training was mostly getting ready, your mindset ready for the adventure. That's the most important thing.
How do you do that? Because the reason why I ask is because it's a question that I get asked a lot, and the enormity, if people have actually pulled up the map by now, which again I suggest you pull up the map, have a look at South America, and actually figure out what these guys were just about to do. How do you prepare the mind for it?
You split it up in pieces.
Right.
Yeah.
So what did that look like?
Well, it looked like 10 hours a day, and that was it.
That's it. So day one, we're going to ride 10 hours.
Yeah, we had our original plan. We had a very ambitious schedule, which we then tweaked and basically threw away completely after the first few days.
Sorry, mate. Do you think that people maybe plan way too much in various aspects of their life and have to throw away the plan after 2 or 3 days.
Definitely.
So what's your advice to those people?
Just do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Just go out and do it.
Yeah.
Just let go. I mean, if you try to control everything, you won't do nothing.
Yeah.
And we are, I mean, the living example of that. Plus,
Absolutely.
we talked about my wife. She was not a cyclist.
Yeah.
She rode the whole continent in the roughest conditions you could ever imagine.
Yeah.
She's done it. Just not because we've thought everything, every detail, and we had lots of black spots.
Yeah.
And, it's part of the adventure. Just get ready the mindset to, be ready to face any major challenges rather than trying to list all the challenge and say, well, I need to beat this, I need to beat this, I need to beat this. Because otherwise, if you meet a situation that you haven't thought about, which is mostly what's happening in these kind of adventures, then you're freaked out and you'll start panicking.
Yeah.
And this is where people, get their mindset weakened and that they're actually maybe scratching or saying it's too much.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I would say get ready, but not too much.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if you list everything, if you try to master the thing.
Yeah. But Axel seem a lot more into details, whereas Andreas seems a little bit more, okay, we'll just do it.
To be honest, I just led all the planning to him because he'd been there before. So I figured you do it and then let's go.
So what we've actually got here is two really interesting personalities. That's probably why you work really well together. You're just one of the relaxed guys. He's going to do it. It's going to be cool. But how do you, as someone, because this is the thing, I think different personalities work with this quite differently, but you're maybe a little bit more into details. You'd been there, you'd learnt things, you'd read a few more books, so how do you relax on those details as well?
Well, I'm just trying to...
If that makes any sense.
Yeah. I'm trying to let go. I mean, this guy was he was a model for me on some aspects, like, not trying to go into every detail. Yeah. What I knew about this guy is that, we rode together in rough conditions before. And I was 100% sure on how he would behave in such situations.
Right.
And that's the main important thing when you're doing team riding like this or team experiences, is that know your teammate.
Yeah.
And we actually knew each other's. Right. We knew exactly, if we were lacking water, fueling, stressing about the mileage or whatever conditions you can have. I know exactly this guy. I know how he behaves, how he reacts.
Right.
And I react the same way. I mean, when I'm enduring something, I'm not trying to control everything. I'm just letting go and, leaving the adventure, saying...
So you've done all of your research. You've got as geeky as you can. But when it's game time, just let it be.
That's what happened during the world record. We planned the whole thing, saying, we'll sleep there, we'll do that. And in the end, fuck that.
Yeah.
Let's crash the planning and do, feel the experience.
Yeah.
And if we had planned something, and if we were not ready to accept the fact that the planning was useless, then some people would freak out and say, wow, absolutely. I won't do it. And we were not thinking like this. We just took the adventure, and actually that's how we made it. It's because, we
tried to enjoy it in that sense.
Exactly.
Yeah. So go on, mate.
So sorry, with the planning, we actually booked the first maybe 10 or 14 days hotels, and then after a few hours, first day, I just canceled everything.
Really?
Yeah. It was like, we'll sort it out on the way.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Well, I mean, we could go into a lot of different details here. I'll try and ask you guys some pretty straightforward questions. I know I'm wearing on time. We try and wrap things up in about 45 to 50 minutes. But why did you choose to start where you started? Let's go there. Just so everyone knows what's going on here. World record attempt. There's two of you, 10,685 kilometers. The previous record was 58 days. You crossed 5 countries across the one continent of South America, which you wanted to do faster than 58 days. Why do you have to start? I'm going to call you out on a little technical here. Where you started is not exactly at the top of South America. So
that's exactly true. It's actually we had guidelines because it was a world record and it was a Guinness World Record.
Guinness, yeah.
So it's a point which is very important to mention.
Yeah.
You're not free to do whatever you want with a Guinness. You have to follow guidelines because these guys are, very accurate. So the previous world record was Cartagena, which is not the top of Colombia.
No.
You're right. But that's the way it was. The world record started from Colombia, Cartagena, up to Ushuaia, Argentina, following the Pan American.
Right.
So you had to start on the Pan American highway and end up on the Pan American. That was the two guidelines.
Right.
And
from Guinness.
Yeah, and we had to get the same starting point and finish point as the Scott Napier guy.
Right. So you almost had to follow what he'd established.
Yeah, but then, and that's the beauty of it. I mean, apart from just riding fast and beating the world record, what we had in mind with Andreas was not following, the main highways and go as fast as possible. Instead of doing that, we followed some crazy roads, like riding at 4,800 meters for 250k, which was actually the worst shortcut ever, because it was not meant to gain time. It was just meant to share with this guy the high altitude riding experience, and go, on one of the highest roads in the world.
Yeah.
So it was not all about riding fast.
Right.
It was mostly riding fast plus, getting the adventure.
So talk about riding fast. How many kilometers? What was your biggest day?
Well, that was the last day.
The last day.
The last day.
Talk us through that.
Yeah. We had actually, I think the last week we did about 2,000k.
Right.
Our plan was to do, 200 a day, approximately through the Andes and these parts, and then in Argentina, when we hit the Pampa on the flat, we were going to go harder and try and push more.
Right.
And we did that, and the day 48, I think it was, we did 300 something.
Right.
The next day we did 420, maybe 30 or something like this.
On day 49.
Yeah, the absolute last day, and that was basically we rode all night because we wanted to beat 50 days.
Right.
And that was actually arriving before 7:45 in the morning.
Right.
So we arrived at 7:29.
Yeah.
So we ended up with 49 days, 43 minutes, 23 hours and 43 minutes or something like this.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And then there must have been some days when you probably didn't really fancy it too much, or the legs are a little bit sore. So what was your shortest day?
That was the same week, the last week.
Really?
We did 25k.
Yeah.
It was absolute misery. It
Really?
was. We rode for about 2 hours in massive headwind. It was raining. It was like 2 degrees.
Wow.
And in the end, I was looked at my power meter. It was, 220, 230, 240. We're doing 9k per hour.
Wow.
And it was just, 240 is... If you're riding outside, it's fine. But if you've done that for 45 days, it's a lot of watts.
It's a lot of watts, yeah.
So it just wasn't sustainable. Plus, we were getting really cold.
Right.
So we basically, after 2 hours, we said, screw this, and stopped.
Incredible.
And just said, let's wait until tomorrow, because winds in Patagonia are super unreliable, unpredictable.
Yeah.
The next day, the wind turned, and we did 300 instead. So
wow.
Yeah.
There's so many. It's such an amazing story, and we could go on and do a 3-hour Joe Rogan show, but we won't. I mean, it is a great story, and I really appreciate you guys sharing those insights. The bottom line is you were successful. You did set a Guinness World Record for crossing for riding down South America. You didn't cross it. Crossing is going across, obviously. You went down South America in 49 days, 23 hours, and 43 minutes. So congratulations to both of you.
Thank you.
Axel, you'd already started this brand called Bikingman, and I want to round out the show for the next 10 minutes or so, because I think what you guys are doing is something quite special and will make adventures like you guys have been exposed to more available to people. So talk us through Bikingman. We kind of understand why it was started. What does it do? What should people look out for? Give us the whole lowdown on Bikingman.
All right. So, Bikingman is a mix of everything you've heard here. But the idea is to share with people from any background, any sportive background, the experience of self-supported journeys and races.
Right.
So what we're building, thanks to the help of Andreas as well, because I'm bringing the adventure, I'm bringing the experience I have in adventure cycling, and Andreas is bringing this whole racing experience, and together we're actually building a race series. So basically we're taking people out of their comfort zones, and we have 4 races in 2018. One in South America, one in Europe, one in the Middle East, and one in Asia. And with different length. But basically we are talking about between 5-day to up to 12-day challenges. Where riders, they have to manage food, water, repair from day one to the end of the race. And ride as hard as they can to actually beat the limited time for every checkpoints that they are passing through. So it's kind of, to put it in one sentence, it's like ultra trail experiences turn into cycling, adventure cycling. So basically you have the clock that starts at the race start. You have to endure and cycle your way through the race and manage your effort, manage your fueling, where you sleep or not, where you repair and how to repair your bike. On some races we build base camps where we can actually help people to have accommodations where there is virtually nothing, and up to the finish of the race.
Distance wise, you said they fluctuate. What's your longest and what's your shortest planned race for 2018?
The longest one is definitely Inca Divide in Peru. It's 1,800 kilometers.
Which you'd expect someone to complete. Is there a time cap? How long would it take?
The time cap is 12 days. But an average rider can actually do it in less than 8. 12 days is just the time limit. It's 150k per day for taking your time.
So, and I think this is talking to you guys sort of off the show. This is something very different that you're bringing. Is most ultra races, definitely in running that I've been exposed to, are it'd be wrong for me to say they're not enjoyable, but you don't have this huge experience that you guys are trying to bring. So if we look at that event, 125 kilometers a day for 12 days. So your thought process is someone could hammer it in 6 days and be in that ultra runner mindset, no sleeping, no feelings, and no care, or it could be quite a enjoy. People will not understand if we say this is going to be an enjoy. But talk us through that. Like, how did you come, and how do you put this together? Because it's quite interesting. It's the first time in endurance sports that we're seeing these things fused together.
Well, basically in ultra cycling, you have 2 worlds. The first one is the Race Across America world, where you're asked as a rider to ride, between 28 to 35k per hour with 2 RVs behind you. A guy slapping your face if you're not fast enough, and you're riding 22 hours per day. And you cross America. That's the most famous ultra cycling race on the planet. But it's supported. So you're stuck between this kind of world and the other extreme, which is the unsupported cycling races that you can see popping up around the world, where basically you have guys that are organizing races. They say point A, point B, and most of them are above 3,500 kilometers long. So talking to people that are able to ride at least for 15, 20, 25 days in a row.
Which is not a great deal of people, right? If you have a family or you have something, Exactly. So you're stuck between these two, and the unsupported riding, I mean, they're bringing nothing apart from just point A. You start here, I don't know, start to Cartagena in Colombia, and you ride up to here. No assistance, nothing, no intels, no advice. You're on your own. So it's basically not racing in a way for most people, because they don't provide anything. And between the two, this is where Bikingman is. We are actually bringing lots of tools to help people to jump into the race
like a survival map where we share, the elevation profile of the race, the distances, where you can sleep, where you can eat, where you can find, all this stuff on a recommended route. That's the first tool we provide. The second thing is safety. You're followed by a GPS tracking system that shares your position every 5 minutes live during the whole race.
Incredible.
So all your relatives, everyone knows where you are, and the organization can actually, in case you're in trouble, you get an SOS functionality that allows the rider to share the fact that he's in a life-threatening situation, and we can actually, take over from this stage. Plus, we are thinking the racing experiences in Bikingman as something doable for anyone and for any working people, not for only adventurers that can manage to take 25 days in a row for racing.
That's what I was saying. And training-wise as well, if you can ride 10,000 kilometers, averaging over 200 a day in the last few days, ride 300 and then 400 on 12, 15 hours training a week, then it's so. The point is that you don't have to be doing. If you're a triathlete that's training for a half Ironman, you're doing that much training anyway.
Exactly.
So you don't actually have to do that much more.
No, I mean most people, they've ridden 100, 180, 200k maybe.
Yeah.
But if you tell them you're riding 300, they'll be scared.
Yeah, for sure.
But if you ride 200, you sit down, you eat, you relax an hour, then you can continue, no problem.
Yeah.
So it's basically it's all mental. You just got to do it. Try and see what happens.
Yeah. This is, I mean, and which is incredible. So the product that you're producing basically appeals to the masses.
Yeah, and we see it for every races. I mean, the first race in K-Divide attracted a wide range of athletes.
Right.
We had Ironman distance athletes.
Yeah.
We had ultra runners. We had mountain bikers from the pros.
So the Inca Divide race is the first race you've organised as a Bikingman brand, which was in South America again. I think you should just move there.
Yeah.
I think you should just forget about France because you obviously love South America that much. Give us a quick overview, mate. How many athletes did you have?
Alors, for the first edition of Inca Divide, it was happening in July 2017. We had 17 athletes.
Wow. Very nice for the first
3,500 kilometers race at that time.
You could have started somewhere in Europe and made it a little bit more tangible for people, but you start in South America and you still get 17, so that's incredible.
Yeah,
right?
And the idea, we wanted to have this grail, this epic race that anyone will search for in time.
Right.
So Inca Divide, we are giving time for the event to, grow because the riding experience in South America, and now Andreas knows everything about it.
Yeah.
It's very special. It's spectacular.
Yeah.
You got the high altitude factor. It's another scale. It's another level.
Yeah, right.
So apart from this race, we have the Bikingman Oman,
right,
which is a bridge into ultra cycling.
Right.
Because we are talking about a 1,000k loop.
Yep.
That you have to complete within 5 days.
Right.
With 7,000 meters. 7,500 meters exactly of elevation gain.
Yep.
And this is the bridge for every athlete.
Right.
And what we've seen so far, because we have 50 people so far registered for the race.
Incredible.
They're coming from, so many different experiences.
Yeah.
It's stunning. We have ultra runners, ultra cyclists, triathletes, mountain bikers, adventurers, like people who took on the journey from I think for now there are very few events in the world where you actually bridge all these sportive communities all together.
Absolutely.
And that's helping to bring a very special event because you're talking to people that are coming from a different background, and you happen to understand why are they doing, for instance, the Cape Epic and now joining Oman. Why have they done Ironman Nice and now joining Oman? So it's actually, breaking borders that normally all these communities are not talking together.
Yeah.
And this event actually gathers everyone on an epic race. It reminds me of a story this guy told me several times, which is the story of Ironman distance triathlon.
Yes.
Like, you get this guy swimming, he was the fastest. You get this guy running, he was the fastest. And you get this guy cycling, he was the fastest.
Yeah.
And one guy, the Collins guy, say one day, wow, let's race together and see who's the fastest.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's how triathlon...
That's how triathlon started,
yeah. And now it's a discipline, and you get the equipment and everything.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we are creating a similar triathlon, new sportive community, but I do believe that from the background we have and the athletes that are joining Oman and that will join the other races, that we're actually managing something that very few cycling events are doing, which is mostly gathering people that are coming from a very different background and that are willing to race. Like an Ironman distance a guy who's willing to race with a sportive guy. So all these guys will have a very different strategy to win the race. But we know with Andreas, with our experience in South America, and when we're discussing about the details and preparing, we know that the guy you bet on at the beginning will not the guy. He will not be the guy who will win. And you get this kind of lottery around the issue, and not the issue, the finish line about these events. That is amazing. Because
absolutely, mate. Absolutely.
Whatever background the guy can have, he can be a very strong triathlete or a very strong mountain biker. He might, get bonked and scratched from the Oman race or the other races.
Andreas, you've come from obviously a slightly different part of this. Obviously with triathlon, you've done an Ironman, you're now a world record holder. With your experience and with that sort of global view on the endurance community and what you know that you guys are trying to create in Bikingman Oman, in Bikingman as a brand, let's fast forward 3 years to 5 years. What will the landscape look like? What will be going on, in your opinion? Or maybe where you want to take the brand. What does it look like 2 or 3 years or 5 years down the track?
That's a good question, but I think we'll keep expanding races. We have 4 races for next year, and we probably have about 15 ideas for other locations. Based basically on our own experience from travel, where or friends travel to different locations. So we're trying to bring interesting races into interesting locations. We don't want to do a race from some boring place just to do a race. We want to bring people to get not just the racing experience but the adventure as well. So
anything really. It could be
anything.
That's incredible. Guys, your story is incredible. What you're trying to do and what you're actually just trying to bring to the whole endurance world is absolutely incredible. We've gone on for a long time. We've covered a lot. How can people get hold of you if they like the sound of this and maybe they want to ask a question? Where should they go? How should they be in touch with you?
Well, they go to our webpage or Facebook.
Which is?
Bikingman.com or Bikingman Ultra on Facebook.
Easy peasy.
Just drop us a message and, we'll respond.
Ask some questions. The first race is on February the
25th.
In Oman. So if anyone from the region is listening and feels like getting involved in that race, you might be able to get a late dropout or someone who's just unable to make it. This race seems very well subscribed. The next race after that is planned to be when and where? Do we have a date yet?
Yeah, it's Corsica.
And
it's late April.
So to get 4 in, you need 1 1/4, right? So easy peasy. I would love to get you guys back on the show after the Oman race to see actually what happened. I was going to put you on the spot there, Axel, and say, you've got an Ironman, you've got this ultra, you've got that ultra. Who do you think will actually win the race? But that's probably a little bit unfair. But what we will do in that... What were you going to say, mate?
I was going to say this distance is very interesting because it's long, but it's not so long.
Super long,
So 1,000 K, there will be people riding all the way to the finish line.
Yeah.
Very hard. It brings the little racing experience as well. So
I suggest you follow the guys over on Instagram as well. They put out a lot of content that's super good from their journeys as well. But I'd love to have you guys back on between the Oman race and the Corsica race. Again, lessons learned and really what happened, because I think it's uncharted territory for you guys. It's uncharted territory for the endurance community. So
are you racing?
Yes.
Good.
I can't.
So you'll give us your experience.
No.
You might not invite us again.
Yeah. CrossFit dropout does cycle race. End of story.
I think you'll do fine.
Let's see how it goes. Andreas and Axel, thanks a lot for taking the time. Guys, what you're doing is amazing, and we wish you, from the InnerFight podcast and from everyone here, the very best of luck. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.